So I play Nekroz almost every locals, and every time I do, I always get asked this one question. Hey Ben, how come you don't play Fiendsmith with this deck? It's so good you can get a free King Caesar from it. And my response will always be, do I look like somebody who enjoys dry cereal? You know what? Do you want to know what a respectable person like me enjoys with their cereal? Tylenol.
Yes, today we are going to be looking at a personal little homebrew I've cooked up in Teleport Nekroz. Now, Nekroz is a archetype that I've spent quite a bit of time on, about 8 months I think now, since it got its support in Battles of Legend. It's a control-style ritual deck that primarily focuses on banishing your opponent's cards while also disrupting strategies revolving around the extra deck. Similar to that, you have Psychic, or I guess Teleport, which also focuses a lot on banishing your opponent's cards, but with a more combo-focused approach. That being said, I actually think these two archetypes do quite complement each other, with them both being banish-focused archetypes, and thanks to the recent support they've both received with First Penguin, Brain Controller, and Teleport Fusion, just to name a few, we now have a way to bridge the two decks together to create, from my perspective, a very unique, engaging strategy. Okay, that last part is a lie. We are using Sophia in this deck. So, without further ado, let's get right to the deck list. So starting with the main deck monsters, we have 3 copies of Avon Swordsman of Nekroz, 3 copies of Amelia Dance Priestess of Nekroz, 1 copy of Sharit Strategist of Nekroz, and 1 copy of Ariel Priestess of Nekroz. Starting off with Avance, it can use itself as full tribute for 1 ritual summon of a Nekroz monster. Once per turn, when normal summoned, it can special summon 1 other Nekroz monster from the deck, and once per duel, when tributed by card effect, you can add back any number of Nekroz cards from the banished with different names to your hand. This card will basically be your 1-card starter to get you on your bread and butter Nekroz combo for Arid Bear, as well as recycling for your banishment for possible turn 2 plays involving Sharit and Trishula. Moving on, we have Amelia. If a warrior Nekroz monster is either on the field or in graveyard, she can special summon herself from the hand, and when summoned, can search a Nekroz ritual monster or spell from deck to hand. So Amelia is our go-to searcher for Arid Bear if we don't already have him in hand, or if we do, we'll either just get Trishula for the turn 2 plays, or Unicorn for a future recycle. We can also use her with either First Penguin or Brain Controller to get out our Silent Psychic Magician for the psychic portion of the strategy. So overall, she does play a vital role in this deck's main game plan. Next up, we have Sharit. Once per turn, when tributed by card effect, we can add 1 warrior Nekroz ritual monster from the deck to our hand. So with Sharit, we basically use him to either search out Nekroz of Trishula and then recycle him with Divine Mirror for the turn 2 play, or if that's not an option, we just have him search out Brianak for turn 3 follow-up. He's pretty much an extender, all things considered, but a very good extender nonetheless, so that's why he's best played at 1 here. Finally, to round out the non-ritual Nekroz monsters, we have Ariel. Once per turn, we can reveal any number of Nekroz cards in our hand to either increase or decrease her level equal to the amount revealed, and when tributed by card effect, also once per turn, we can search out a non-ritual Nekroz monster from the deck. One of the key cards for the teleport portion of the strategy, it's imperative that we get Ariel in the graveyard through either of the Arid Bear effects, so that we can summon her back with Silent Psychic Magician to either get out QB Shen, or if we have 3 Nekroz cards already in hand, reduce her level to 1 to then sync her off with the Magician to get out our Serene Psychic Sorceress. The reason we play her at 1 though is because we don't really want to run into her too much, as we are surprisingly playing a fairly low Nekroz package, at least by Nekroz standards. That said, it doesn't hurt to put her at 2 either if you so wish, and you'll see why in a bit, but for now, I think she's good at 1 for the time being. Moving on to our rituals, we have 3 copies of Nekroz of Arid Bear, 3 Nekroz of Brianak, 3 Nekroz of Trishula, 1 Nekroz of Unicorn, and 1 Nekroz of Clossalus. Starting with Arid Bear, while in your hand you can discard this card and tribute up to 2 Nekroz monsters from hand or field to Foolish equal to the amount tributed this way. While on the field though, if a monster effect is activated, you can quick effect tribute 1 monster from hand or field to negate the activation, and if you do, banish it. This card is one of our main boss monsters for the Nekroz Bread and Butter combo. This card will not only allow us to facilitate graveyard plays regarding the ritual spells, but will also play a huge part in getting Ariel in the graveyard to unlock access to the QB Shenshen or Serene via SPM. The reason we play free is because on certain occasions, if you have Ariel in hand and one of the tuners on the field, you kinda also want to see Ariel Bear in there as well, because you can not only get her into the graveyard faster, but also due to her tribute effect, you can either get Avance or Amelia to extend the Nekroz combo further, potentially into a Trishula or a Unicorn for plays on your opponent's turn. Next up we have Nekroz of Trishula. While in hand, if an effect is activated that targets a Nekroz monsters you control, you can discard this card, and if you do, negate the activation. When this card is ritual summoned though, you can banish exactly 3 of your opponent's cards, 1 from field, 1 from graveyard, and 1 from hand at random. One of my absolute favourite cards in the archetype. Like, being able to deal with board presence is nice on its own, but being able to also disrupt card advantage and graveyard plays as well, especially on your opponent's turn thanks to Divine Mirror, gives this card the type of surgical utility I love from control decks. It being its own in-archetype hand trap also helps as well, since it does protect us from cards like Imperm and Effect Failure during ours and our opponent's turns respectively. Moving on, we now have Brionac. While in hand, you can discard this card and add a Nekroz monster from the deck to your hand. While on the field though, you can target up to 2 monsters, special summon from the extra deck, and then shuffle them back. We're mostly using this card for its discard effect to add our starters for the Nekroz line. That said though, I wouldn't discount the second effect completely, because it has come in clutch against things like the Dracotale fusion monsters or Chaos Angel for me. It's very situational on the field, but at the same time, that's not always a bad thing in my books, so don't be afraid to bring it out when you need to. Moving on to our final 2 ritual monsters, we have Nekroz of Klosalas and Nekroz of Unicorn. Starting with Klaus, while in hand, it can discard itself to add 1 Nekroz spell or trap. While on the field though, quick effect, we can target 1 monster special summon from the extra deck to negate its effect and reduce its attack to 0. Next we have Unicorn. While in hand, you can discard this card and target 1 card in the graveyard to add it back to hand. While on the field though, we negate the effects of all monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. Both of these cards work in a similar way to Sharit in the sense that we primarily use them as extenders for the main Nekroz combo. That said though, they can be extremely effective on the field as well, being able to effectively shut down most extra deck centric strategies like Branded, Dracotale, and even Lunarlight. Unfortunately though, with Herald gone and Kaleidoscope no longer being a go-to way to cheese them out, extender status is probably what they're gonna be for the time being. Finally, to round out our main monster lineup, we're running 3 copies of First Penguin and 1 copy of Brain Controller. First Penguin reads, if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from the hand, and if summoned this way, counts itself as a tuner. Once per turn, while on the field, you can discard 1 card and reveal 1 water synchro monster from the extra deck, then add a water monster from deck to hand with the same type but 1 level lower than the revealed monster. You can put this card face down, and for the rest of the turn, your extra deck is locked into only water monsters. Honestly, one of the best bits of water support we've gotten recently. This card is very important to the strategy in 2 ways. If you want to get access to the teleport line, you do not use the search effect, as it basically locks you out of the engine. You're mainly using this with any Nekroz level 4 to make SPM, or if it's not available, we can use its effect to reveal if World Chalice Justicar to then search for our starters for the Nekroz bread and butter. So overall, very versatile card for the deck and a must-have for any water deck. Lastly, we have the first card of our teleport package in Brain Controller, which reads, if normal or special summoned, you can add 1 Brain Control from deck to hand. Each once per turn, if you pay life points, you can target up to 1 face-up monster on the field and declare a level from 1 to 8, then the target becomes that level. Finally, if this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can special summon this card from the graveyard to your opponent's side of the field in defense with its effects negated. Simply put, none of the effects of this card here matter, outside of maybe the graveyard summon to stop potential imperms. Other than that, we're mainly using this as a summon off emergency teleport to get a level 1 tuner on the board, as well as a guaranteed Serene when we summon him off of SPM. So with all the main deck monsters sorted out, it's now time we move on to the spells. Starting with the Nekroz spells, we'll be running 3 copies of Nekroz Divine Mirror and 1 copy of Nekroz Cycle. Starting with Divine Mirror, it is actually a quick play ritual spell that reads, during the main phase, ritual summon 1 Nekroz monster from the hand or banished by tributing monsters from hand and or sending Nekroz monsters from the extra deck to the graveyard, whose levels equal or exceed its level. Also during your main phase you can banish this card and one Nekroz monster from your graveyard to add one Nekroz spell from your deck to your hand. Arguably the best card in the deck, we not only use its grave effect to banish itself and any Nekroz in the graveyard to get our one Nekroz cycle from the deck, but more importantly, the fact that it's a quick play ritual means that when paired with Shuri and Trishula, it's an absolutely insane surgical tool for dealing with the board on your opponent's turn. So yeah, overall a must-have card for any Nekroz deck coming out these days. To round out the Nekroz spells, we have Nekroz Cycle. This card can be used to ritual summon any Nekroz ritual monster from hand or graveyard using monsters from the hand or field. If this card is in the graveyard and you control no monsters, it can banish itself and one Nekroz monster to add a Nekroz spell from the deck to the hand. Very crucial card for the Nekroz B&B. We're mostly going to tribute Avance for effect to get back the Arid Bear we have engraved, which will then trigger the Avance tribute effect to add the Divine Mirror and the Nekroz monster we banished off Divine Mirror to our hand. Moving on to the second part of our teleport engine, we're running 3 copies of Emergency Teleport and 1 copy of Teleport Fusion. Starting with Emergency Teleport, this card special summons 1 level 3 or lower psychic monster from our hand or deck, but banishes it at the end of the turn. So with E-Tele, if we have our Nekroz starters but don't have First Penguin in our opening hand, this basically makes it so that we still summon out Brain Controller and still have access to SPM further down the line. Then to round it out we have Teleport Fusion, which reads, during the main phase, we can fusion summon 1 Psychic Fusion monster from the extra deck by banishing Psychic monsters from field or graveyard as material. It also has a graveyard effect. If a face-up Psychic monster that was special summoned from the extra deck is destroyed by battle or by card effect, it can banish itself from the graveyard to then target 1 Psychic monster in our banishment and special summon it. So what we will do with this card is we set it from our deck via Serene Psychic Sorceress effect, so that on our opponent's main phase, we can either get our Axon Kicker Oracle to stop any potential follow-up, or if we get Serene into the graveyard, get our Absolute Axon Kicker, and then use its effect paying 2,000 to banish the opponent's entire board face up. So in a way, this card works as a pseudo 4th Divine Mirror in the deck, as we're basically just banishing most of our opponent's plays on their turn with this strat. Now, for our next engine, we are running a small Radiant Typhoon package, consisting of 3 copies of Radiant Typhoon Vision, and 1 copy of Mystical Space Typhoon. Got to give a big shout out to SS Don, by the way. I actually got the idea to run this package along with the non-engine spell setup I'll show in a bit from one of his recent Nekroz videos. I'll leave a link in the description to his channel if you want to go check it out. Man is actually more insightful about this archetype than I am, if you're interested, so please go check out SS Don and go subscribe to his channel. So with Vision, we get to choose one of 2 effects. The first one will allow us to draw 2 cards and discard 1 quick play spell or our entire hand if we do not have one, and the second one will allow us to add 1 Mystical Space Typhoon from either our deck or our graveyard to our hand. We can also blow it up with our own MST to then reset it for the next turn. So given that we'll be running a lot more quick play spells in this deck in addition to our Divine Mirror and Teleport cards, Vision actually does really well at maintaining this deck's consistency, with it giving us 2 cards that we could potentially use to add to our board presence. And finally, to round out the package, Mystical Space Typhoon targets 1 spell or trap on the field and destroys it. Pretty simple back row removal, and with Vision we can easily recycle it for board presence. It does also come in clutch a lot when dealing with current decks in the format like VSK9, Yummy, or Apophis. Finally, to round out the rest of the main deck, we'll be running 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet, 3 copies of Super Poly, 3 copies of Blizzard, 2 copies of Fallen and the Virtuous, and 1 copy of Called by the Grave. Just gonna speedrun through these cards as we all know what they do by now. Forbidden Droplet is going to provide us with a nice amount of monster negates, especially since we're getting a lot of cards from Avance and the Radiant Typhoon package. Super Poly is a genuinely great board breaker for this format, especially since we see a lot of fusion decks running around with Branded and Draco Tail. Blizzard I will go into a bit of detail with. This card basically targets 1 spell card on the field and negates its activated effects along with the effect of all spells on the field with the same name for the whole turn. If the targeted spell would go to the graveyard, it is added back to the hand instead. genuinely underrated spell. It kind of shuts off a lot of soft once per turn spells like Runic Fountain, or board breakers like Harpy's Feather Duster and Dark Ruler and more, so I definitely recommend giving this card another look if you have the chance. Fallen and the Virtuous helps with spot removal, so cards like Yummy Mignon, fuck it, Cats and Candyland, I fucking give up. Or any floodgates like Skill Drain or Rivalry don't become too much of a problem further down the line. Lastly, we have Called by the Grave to stop cards like Ash, Ghost Bell, and Droll and Lockbird from shutting down our game plan. So that is it for the main deck. Overall, I'd say we have a decent set of ratios here. I think 46 cards for the main deck is kind of the way to go, considering what we'll be trying to pull off with it. That said, there are a few cards I think we could do without, maybe Fallen of the Virtuous, since we are now making more use of the extra deck monsters, and not just using them for free grave interactions. That said, I think the lineup we have here is still genuinely good for the main deck. Moving away from the main deck now, let's get started on the extra deck. Starting off with our Psychic monsters, we're running one copy of Silent Psychic Magician, one copy of Serene Psychic Sorceress, one Virtual World QB Shinshen, one Absolute Axon Kicker, and one Axon Kicker Oracle. Starting with Silent Psychic Magician, when special summoned we can target one level 4 or lower Psychic monster in our graveyard to special summon it, and optionally raise its level by 1 extra deck, locking us into Psychic monsters for the rest of the turn. If this monster we control would be used as material for a synchro summon, it can count itself as a non-tuner. The heart and soul of the teleport engine in this deck, we're going to be utilizing this monster with cards like Brain Controller and Ariel to either get us a QB Shenshen on the board as the walking D-shifter, or get us to Serene so that we can set up our turn 2 Axon plays. Next up we have Serene. Once per turn, when synchro summoned, we can pay 1000 life points to then set a teleport normal or quick play spell from either our deck, graveyard, or banished. If this card is sent to the graveyard, we can target 1 card on the field, or 2 if we have a Psychic Fusion or Synchro monster on the board, and then return the target to the hand. This card is our main bridge into the Axon Fusion monsters, allowing us to set 1 Teleport Fusion. In addition to that, she's also a fairly good float card. If you have her and Arid Bear on the field, you can basically tribute her for Arid Bear's Monster Negate effect, and get a free bounce on the resolution. So honestly, very good synergy card for both Teleport and Nekroz here. QB Shenshen reads, any card sent from the field to the graveyard is banished instead. When one of our monsters declares an attack, we can return 1 banished monster to either graveyard. Finally, during our turn, if this card is in our graveyard except the turn it was sent, we can banish 2 monsters with different types and attributes from our graveyard to then special summon itself back from the grave. Not much to say about this card, it's mostly just a walking D-shifter with a nice little self-revive graveyard effect. In terms of getting it out, we're mostly getting this from tuning off SPM and REL. And right around the corner we have Absolute Axon Kicker. Must be fusion summoned, it cannot be destroyed by card effects, and when this card is fusion summoned, we can pay 2000 life points to banish all face-up cards our opponent controls. If this card is in our graveyard except the turn it was sent, we can banish it and then special summon a level 10 Psychic Fusion monster from our extra deck, which will count itself as a fusion summon. Pretty much the H-bomb of our deck, we can get this card out on our opponent's turn by using the Teleport Fusion we set during our turn to fuse the Serene Psychic Sorcerer and Silent Psychic Magician in our graveyard, and then on summon, nuke our opponent's board. So in a roundabout way, this is a Trisha combo on steroids. We can also use its grave effect to then get out our final Psychic Fusion monster, Axon Kicker Oracle. After this is fusion summoned, it gains 1000 attack for each Synchro, XYZ, and Link monster used for its material until the end of the next turn. Once per turn, if our opponent would special summon monsters, we can quick effect negate the summon, and if we do, banish it. Finally, if this card would be sent to the graveyard, we can banish 1 teleport normal or quick play spell from our graveyard to then resummon him. Always good to have a summon negate, especially one that can revive itself, and while this will be our go-to summon off of Absolute's graveyard effect, we can also just hard summon it of Teleport Fusion using SPM and either REL or Brain Controller in our graveyard if we need to, so overall very good utility fusion for our extra deck. Next in our extra deck we have our Super Poly targets. We're running 1 Garura Wings of Resident Life, 1 Mud Dragon of the Swamp, 1 Magistus Chorozo, 1 5-Headed Dragon, and 1 Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. Similar to the non-engine spells, I'm just going to run through these super quick. Mud Dragon and Garura will be our all-rounders. Magistus Chorozo synergizes really well with our deck, being mostly spellcasters. Starving Venom will mostly help us deal with dark focused decks like VSK9. And lastly, 5-headed Dragon, because I think it would be really funny to piss off at least one Dragon Link, Draco Tail, or branded player in my lifetime. Do not judge me. We all saw that one Yu-Gi-Oh! Story video by Loom and have all wanted to pull off this janky bullshit. Next we have our mandatory Fallen and the Virtuous targets in Albion the Branded Dragon and the Dragon that Devours Dogma. Their other effects don't really matter here, as we are mainly just using them to recycle the Fallen and the Virtuous. That said though, they do make for good Super Poly targets going against branded decks, so they're still quite useful in other ways. Finally, to round out the rest of our extra deck, we play 1 copy of Baguska, 1 copy of Sword Soul Chenying, and 1 copy of Ib the World Chalice Justicar. I won't really talk about Baguska or Chenying here, as their use in this deck is very few and far between really. Like, they do come up, but not very much. Ib here is very important though, as she is our go-to reveal for first Penguin effect, should we not have direct access to the teleport line. And that is it for the extra deck, and with no more time to waste, let's get straight to the side deck. So first for our side deck, we are running 3 copies of Nekroz of Sophia. So the reason we run Sophia at 3 here is because going second, this card's hand effect is insanely broken for this deck. Like, we don't even need to use its summon effect. I mean, why would you try to? Like, you know it's bad when the original Sophia is easier to summon than this card. The hand effect reads, during the main phase 1, quick effect, you can discard this card and 1 Nekroz spell. Neither player can special summon from the extra deck for the rest of this phase. Now bear in mind, in Yu-Gi-Oh!, since you don't have a battle phase going first, you therefore don't have a main phase 2, which means for any branded Draco Tail, Lunalight, basically any archetype that uses the extra deck as their lifeline, this card is essentially a turn skip. That is actually insane, and I'm gonna say it, this is a must-have for any Nekroz side deck in my opinion. Next up we have our non-engine spells, 3 copies of Eye of Illusion, 3 D-Fissure, 2 Secret Village, and 1 Terraforming. So since we're playing Avance and Divine Mirror in this deck, we don't really care about our stuff getting banished that much, which is why we play the Fissures, we play Eye of Illusion and Secret Village, because while yes, we are running a mostly psychic focused list, we still have a decent amount of spellcasters in Avance, Amelia, and Unicorn that we can use to synergize with the Village and the Eye of Illusion. And finally, we just have Terraforming to make getting the Secret Village a bit easier on us. Finally, to finish off the side deck, we are playing 3 copies of White Howling. So with this card, if we control a water monster, we banish 1 target spell in our opponent's graveyard, and for the rest of the turn, we negate the effects of all our opponent's spells on the field. This card works really well into decks like Runic or Radiant Typhoon, effectively shutting off their main strategies for the whole turn. We are likely to side this going first alongside Fissure and Secret Village if needed though. And that is it. This is my interpretation of Teleport Nekroz. Overall, while I don't think this deck is the most competitively viable way to play Nekroz, me personally, I think Pure just works a bit better, I do think this is a genuinely fun alternative take on the strategy. I hope you all very much enjoyed this video. Hopefully I should be able to get the follow-up combo video of this done fairly soon. Hopefully with a lot less work. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Or don't. I don't want to be famous. This has been Ben. Thanks for watching.